Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's REI Weekly Deal Breakdown. I'm your host, Greg Hellback, and thank you for listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with me, I have done well over 220 real estate deals. I've been a full-time entrepreneur now for almost 10 years. I live up here in Seattle, Washington. I've been able to virtualize this business over the last 6 or 7 years. So the point of me saying that is all the information you're going to learn on this podcast is practical, real-world advice. If you get value from this podcast episode or any podcast, if you could do me a favor, subscribe to us on YouTube, share the show, and tell your friends about it because that's how we keep growing the show on a weekly basis. So without further ado, today's REI deal breakdown is 141 Floyd Ackert Road. First things first, this property was in New York. The way that I found the deal was actually through social media relationships. Another wholesaler, actually two wholesalers, reached out to me, good friends of mine, and they were like, hey, we got this deal. We want to see if we can wholesale it. You want to send it out to your list and we can split it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Looked at the deal and I was like, well, I don't know. This doesn't really seem like a deal. There's really no crystal clear ARV, after repair value. It's in a good area, but it's not in the best area. And I was like, I can send it out to the list and see what goes on. We'll see if anyone wants it. We signed a JV agreement together, which is key. I put it out and we had some bites, but I had somebody actually, the ultimate buyer here, made a very aggressive sight unseen offer. And I called them. I actually never worked with this person before. It was a buyer through a real estate agent. I think we had it under contract for 70 and we were trying to sell it for 100. And I said, you're claiming you want to buy it sight unseen. You don't need to see it before you sign contracts. If that's the case, put the deposit down and we'll go from there. They complied. It took us a while to get them the contract for some reason, but then it took them a while to sign the contract, but they ended up putting a deposit down without seeing the house. Once they signed the contract, then shit started to get hairy on this deal. This deal was a roller coaster. So they want to go see the house now. So I said, okay, I understand where you're coming from. You told me you wanted to buy this sight unseen. Now you want to see it. Misled me a little bit there, but whatever. Ended up getting the buyer inside. They were a little disappointed with the house, probably a little buyer's remorse. And anyway, long story short, there was like a quasi title issue with the property where there was an encroachment, which means that part of the fence was on the neighbor's line. And basically the buyers tried to use that to get out of the deal. And we had the $7,000 deposit down with the seller. And this was our only buyer who was serious. And we told them, well, you're going to lose your deposit if you cancel, because in theory, it's a title issue. But in all reality, when we're talking with our title company, it was a utility easement. It wasn't a valid title issue. Anyway, it ended up working out because we threatened to keep their deposit. We ended up making $30,000 roughly, split three ways, better than a sharp stick in the eye. What are some lessons you can learn on this so you could hopefully make $30,000 on a deal and not have to worry about getting your time wasted? Number one, if you only have one buyer on any property, whether you're flipping, wholesaling, you're in trouble because you're depending upon one person to make you successful from a transaction standpoint. So in this case, we had one buyer, and that's why they had us buy the you-know-what for a minute, because that's all we had. Lesson number two. Need to know your contracts well, because we knew that we had a valid contract with the buyer stated if there were no title issues, and there ultimately wasn't a title issue, we were going to be able to keep their deposit. And when they found out that we could keep their deposit and their attorney told them that, they turned around and closed on the property because they were either going to lose their deposit or try to buy this house and make some money. So know your contract law. That's important. Number three, when you're wholesaling houses, this is a mistake that I actually really learned on this one. This house was brought to me from somebody else, so I had no control over talking with the seller. And the seller was pissed that we were wholesaling it. And normally, if this was my lead, I would have totally just told them, hey, I'm wholesaling this house. If you're not cool, that's fine. So the point is this, be upfront with sellers. When they know what you're doing, it's way easier to get them to comply. It just makes the deals go by a lot easier. Those are the lessons from 141 Floyd Ackert Road. Ended up being a successful deal. If you got value, do me a favor, subscribe, share, promote the show. And if you have a property you want to wholesale to me or wholesale with me on a JV basis, you know the drill. Greg at velocityhousebuyers.com. I'll see you on the next REI deal breakdown. Take care.